Hey there, wealth saving and investing. And I'm 1 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 1 and 2, saying that finances is not a set for gifts. Hey there. Welcome, Kingdom Builders, to the very first episode of Radical Godly Stewardship. This is the podcast that dares to challenge the status quo and to flip the script on everything that you've been taught about success, about money, and control. If you're tired of trying to play by the world's rules and coming up short, if you're ready to stop chasing wealth and start letting God lead, you're in the right place. So this podcast is for those who have tried it the world's way and realize that it simply doesn't work. You're here because you know deep down inside of you that there is something more. You're here because you know deep down inside of you there is something greater that you've been called to, and it's time to take back control by giving it up. And giving it up to who? To God and God alone. And when I say God, I mean Yah. I mean Yahweh, the God of Abraham, Jacob, and Isaac, right? We got to make sure these days because we don't know what God, people be worshiping. So I want to make it clear which God I serve, right? So let's start out today by talking about what radical godly stewardship means. What does radical godly stewardship mean? Well, what it means is that it's a mindset, it's a lifestyle, it is also a challenge, right? It's a challenge because this is not the way of the world. It's a challenge because this is not grandma's way of stewardship, okay? When they talked about stewardship, and not just grandma, but when I say grandma, I mean just tradition, right? When they talked about stewardship, it really was just about tithe, okay? It's stewardship time. I can remember hearing in a church that I have attended in the past, it's stewardship time. And that would be the line, right before collecting offering. And stewardship is so much more than that, right? And so we're going to talk about those things. Radical godly stewardship is about surrendering every aspect of your life to God's rule, not just your finances, but your time, your talents, your environment, your influence, all of it, right? It's about recognizing what you have and that everything you have and everything that you are belongs to the King of Kings and to the Lord of Lords. And with that recognition comes the responsibility to multiply, right? To produce, number one, to multiply and to dominate for his kingdom. All right. So are you ready for the controversial truth? Because that's what you're going to get here on Radical Godly Stewardship is controversial truth. If you're not radically stewarding what God has given you, you are wasting it. I'm going to say that again. If you are not radically stewarding what God has given you, you are wasting it. And wastefulness is not just a bad habit, that is sin. We are reminded of this in Luke chapter 16, verse 10, where Jesus says, whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much. And whoever is dishonest with very little will also be dishonest with much. And Proverbs 3, chapter 9, verse 10, chapter 9, verses 9 and 10 says, honor the Lord with your wealth, with the first fruit of your crop. Then your barns will be filled to overflowing, and your vats will brim over with new wine. And so this is why we're here, right? Now, I want to share with you why we are doing this. Why am I doing this? Not we. Why am I doing this? So, why am I doing this? Listen, I'm personally tired of seeing kingdom citizens struggle, tired of seeing us not winning in this critical area of life, in the area of finances. How can we be a good witness for the kingdom when we are drowning in debt, when we are living paycheck to paycheck, failing to manage what God has entrusted to us, missing out on opportunities because we don't have the discretionary income, there when we need it? So what I know is we've been called to be the head, not the tail. We've been called to be above and not beneath. We've been called to be the lender, not the borrower. But how can we live that out if we're not being faithful stewards? None of that happens without us being faithful stewards. So this podcast is my way of sounding the alarm, right? It is my way of saying, look, enough is enough. It's time for us to rise up as kingdom citizens. It's time for us to once and for all take control of our finances and be the example that God intended us to be. We're meant to show the world what true abundance looks like. We're the ones that's supposed to be showing the world, okay? Not those that don't believe in God, okay? We are the ones who are supposed to be showing the world what abundance looks like. And it starts with letting God take the lead. That's where it starts. So let me share with you the purpose of the podcast. Now, I've already shared with you why I'm doing this, but I want to share with you the purpose of the podcast. It's simple, but it is profound, okay? It's to equip you with the truth about stewardship from a kingdom perspective so that you can break free from the lies and the traps of worldly success. We're going to explore what it truly means to let God be in control of your finances and why that's the only way to live in true abundance. Okay. And I know that sounds counterintuitive to the world, right? That the only way to be in control is to give it up. But that is the truth. And that's the truth in any area of your life, right? In your relationships, right? If you try to control a person, it doesn't work out, right? It gets very messy, it gets very nasty, it gets all kinds of things, right? And you trying to control, the more you try to control, the worse it gets, the less control you actually have, right? So in the kingdom, if you want to gain control, you give up control. Okay, so we'll dig into how your financial stewardship affects every other area of your life, your relationships, your purpose, your spiritual journey. We're going to bring on some incredible guest speakers who are living proof that when you let God take the reins, the impossible becomes possible. And we're also looking to connect with financial professionals who practice kingdom principles and want to share their expertise, right? So whether you are a financial professional or whether you are someone who has a testimony and how you giving up control of your finances to God has blessed you and others around you, we're looking for you. If that's you, we want you to reach out. We want to hear your story, and we'd love to feature you on the show. Okay. Your testimony could inspire countless others to trust God with their resources. Now, our guest speakers, particularly the financial professionals, when they come on our show, they're going to give their personal testimony, how they ended up in the space that they're in, serving now in this area. And they're also going to share in the area of their expertise, give some practical wisdom. Y'all know who I am. I don't like to just be theoretical. I like for you to have some practical things, tips that you can take away and do right away that day. And so our guest speakers are going to be doing that as well. Now, I want to share with you that these episodes, okay, so the first part of the episode will be open to everyone, okay? Everyone. But the second half of the episode the practical tips and all of those things, you will need to be a member in our Patreon community. Okay. Now, you can go over and be a member of our Patreon community for free. Okay. And there is a link in the description or in the show notes that will show you how to join our Patreon. Our Patreon is called Kingdom Money Masters. And so you're going to want to go and join the Patreon, because I promise you're not going to want to miss what these financial professionals and just general everyday people with their testimonies, you're not going to want to miss what they have to share. Okay. So just want to give you that heads up as well. All right. So upcoming episodes, let's talk about it. We're going to be diving into topics that's going to make you uncomfortable. It just is. We must, because we cannot continue in the way that we're going, right? We're going to challenge you to take action. And taking action, right? That's what's going to push you toward true dominion in every area of your life. We don't want to just be, this podcast where we talk, because that's what podcasts are for, right? There's a lot of talking, but we want you to take action. We're going to talk about why irresponsibility with your time and talents is nothing less than rebellion against God. It's like the ultimate rebellion, okay? And we're going to talk about why that is. We're going to explore how your finances are the foundation of all stewardship, and how you can start taking radical steps today to align your life with kingdom principles. That's what's coming up in these episodes, okay? So in addition to that, as I mentioned, we're going to be featuring special guest speakers who are walking this radical path and have the testimonies to back it up. And so these are people who have let go of the world's way of doing things, and they've embraced God's way fully, and they're thriving because of it. So if you're ready to stop playing games, and if you're ready to stop trying to make it on your own and start living the life of radical, God-centered stewardship you were created for, then I want you to hit that subscribe button. I want you to make sure all the notifications are set, right? Hit that all if you're on YouTube, so you get all the notifications. And you're going to share this with your fellow kingdom builders, right? And we're going to embark on this journey together. We are all about producing, multiplying, and dominating. That is the first mandate, the first stewardship mandate that God gave us back in Genesis chapter 1, verse 28. So he created us to be producers. What does that mean? We're to create, okay? We are to make things happen. We are to, not just sit back and let life happen to us, okay? We are not to just sit and wait on somebody else, right? To say whether we can or cannot, whether we can have wealth and not have wealth. And I'm not talking about anarchy or anything like that, y'all. I'm just simply saying that there are some of us who are working 9-to-5s that are clearly not called to that, okay? Everybody is not called to run a business, but also everybody's not called to a 9-to-5, right? Some are. That's where God has you, and that's where you're supposed to be. Some of you, you're there, but that's not where you're supposed to be, right? He's called you to produce in another way. He's called you to run your own business, to run your own organization, ministry, nonprofit, whatever it may be. He has called you to produce. Some of you, whether you're running a 9-to-5 or a business, you're still not doing what he called you to do. He's called you to produce something very specific to put out into the world, right? And you haven't done it, right? Because we're sitting back thinking, oh, somebody else will do it. Or we're just sitting back and waiting to be, fed ourselves. We're just so caught up in consuming, right? We're caught up in consuming that we're so distracted with consuming that we have not answered our call to produce, right? And then there's multiplication, because you can only multiply after you have produced. Okay, multiplication doesn't come from out of nowhere, right? You have to produce, then you can multiply, right? And then we're going to talk about how you do that in every area of your life, especially in finances. Okay, and then once you multiply, it just reminds me of, I don't even know how to describe it. Sometimes when you see something on a screen and it starts out with like 1 dot, 2 dots, 3 dots, and then it starts putting all these dots all over the screen, like that's multiplication, right? That's filling and multiplying. And that's what God calls you to do. That's what he calls me to do. So whatever he has called us to produce, he not only wants us to produce it, but once it's produced, he wants it to multiply, because we are supposed to take over. And you cannot get to dominion and take over without multiplication. Y'all see that? Produce, multiply, dominate. That is radical godly stewardship. That's radical godly stewardship. And so what I want you to do between now and next week is to reflect on these various areas of your life. Reflect on your relationships. Reflect on your jobs. Reflect on your career. Reflect on your business. Reflect on your ministry. Reflect on every area of your life and ask yourself, are you producing or consuming? If you're consuming, then ask God to show you what you're to produce. If you are indeed producing, then ask yourself if you're multiplying. Because if you're producing, but you're not multiplying, then you don't get to dominion, right? So ask God, how do you multiply? And listen, when we talk about multiplying, we're not necessarily saying, so because this is about finances, we're not necessarily saying, oh, because you have 500,000, now you need 500 million. No, it's whatever God, whatever multiplication is for you. Okay. It's going to look different for each of us. Our call is going to be, unique to us and different. But if we're producing and we're not multiplying in some way, shape, or form, we're not going to get to dominion. Okay. If you're producing and you're multiplying, then dominion should follow. And if that's not the case, don't worry, because that's what we're going to do here on Radical Godly Stewardship. Well, I hope that you've enjoyed this introductory episode. This is going to be the shortest episode. Typically, they're going to be about 30 minutes long. There could be part ones and part twos, depending on our speakers and whatever we're teaching. But we're going to try to keep them to 30 minutes. And I'm excited. And I hope you are too. Okay. One last time, I'm going to ask you to make sure that you subscribe. Okay. Hit your notification bell if you're on YouTube. Also, go over and join our Kingdom Money Masters Patreon. Don't hesitate, okay? Soon as this intro music goes on, you want to watch it, you can watch it. But as soon as this intro music goes on, head on over there to our Kingdom Money Masters Patreon and join. There's a free level. There are paid levels. Look at what each one provides. Get in where you fit in, okay? Get in wherever God tells you you need to be in this season of your life. And we'll see you next time on Radical Godly Stewardship. Oh, by the way, because I don't think I've even said this the whole entire time. That is crazy. I'm Lexi Johnson. I'm an international speaker, licensed financial coach and strategist. I am a kingdom citizen I love the Lord, and I'm excited to walk with you on this journey of radical godly stewardship. We'll see you next time.